Hey fam, it's J Lobos coming back to you on another episode, and guess what? Today I wanted to talk to you guys about something that's really important. I hear this a lot, and as a matter of fact, in one of my chats, somebody asked a question. Can a collection or a creditor, after it's been deleted or it's been already repaired, can it come back onto the report? Or precisely, if you remove an account, can that account come back onto your credit report? And the answer, a quick answer, is going to be no. So obviously there's a lot of, what ifs, or, I did see an account, or I ran my report and all of a sudden it's the same account. And I wanted to give you guys a few key steps that you yourself could do. If you right now are working with a credit repair company, you're doing your own disputes, or you've submitted a dispute, and all of a sudden an account came off, or you were under the impression that the account came off, and then all of a sudden now you run your report and the account is still there, or it came back, or we're under that impression. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a few pointers. So for you guys out there checking out the channel for the first time, again, like, subscribe, comment, and share if you found this information to be very educational and fruitful. So let's go ahead and dive into a few things. This is one of the things that I always highly encourage our processing staff or our processing team to do, especially when we're looking to find out what's happened from month to month. One of the first key steps right here, guys, very, very, very important, super imperative. Have yourself, and do yourself a favor, have a credit monitoring platform. Have somewhere where you're going in from month to month and you're checking to see what's happening. Example, you could have something like Identity IQ, myfico.com, Credit Check Total, so on and so forth. Why? Because it's very difficult for you to say, or for you to actually analyze something now that you don't have something to compare from. So if you right now had access, I like Identity IQ, on the left-hand side, once you have the subscription, it gives you by months. So I could literally find out what happened 7 months ago, as long as I've had the membership for that long, right? So if I want to say that I went ahead and challenged something 7 months ago and now the account came back on, the best thing for you to do is to have that report from back then, compare it to now, and what are we actually comparing? So I actually wrote down a few things for you guys to go ahead and put side by side. Because what happens is the following: under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, everything on your report has to be verifiable, accurate, and complete. And if it's not, it has to be deleted or corrected. And under the same rule, it can't come back. Obviously, if it's been deleted, because of that same rule, it prohibits the information, or in this particular case, a creditor, from reapplying the account back onto the report, because it's a violation with it itself. If you found a discrepancy, there should be no reason why the information should persist or should stay or should come back. Again, that's a violation. We'll go into that in another video. But key identifiers right now that I look for when I give training are 7 components. It could be more, it could be less, depending on the report that you're obviously retrieving. But these are things that are kind of, in a sense, obvious. If right now, for the most part too, when we're talking about an account coming off and coming back on, I would say 95% of the time, when I hear a comment that something came back, it has to do with a collection. So obviously we have an original creditor. The original creditor could be, let's say in this particular case, it could be a hospital bill. And people tend to kind of have a number in their head, and the number is based on the bill that you're actually being charged for. So maybe you went to the doctor, obviously you didn't have insurance. All of a sudden they charge you $1,000 for a visit. So you keep that $1,000, you go ahead and eventually the account gets sold to a collection company from the hospital or from wherever it came from. And now all of a sudden it's on your report. You went on Credit Karma, or you did your own disputes, or you're working with a company, and that account came off. Then all of a sudden, a few months later, you see $1,000, same hospital, Memorial West, or whatever the case might be. And you're like, hey, that account came off. Now it's back onto my report. So let's be specific to be terrific. I always say this. First off, we have 3 agencies. I see this a lot too. Sometimes a customer might start off with a negative item on Equifax, but then all of a sudden throughout the months or throughout the dispute process, now all of a sudden it's now reporting on one of the other 2 that was not reporting back then. So we can't say that the account was off, now it came back. No, it was never there to begin with. So you have to do your due diligence. You have to have the report, because if it was on Equifax and you deleted it off Equifax, and then a few months later you saw it on TransUnion, you can't say, hey, I deleted this account. How come it came back on? No. It was never on the bureau. And we tend to, as consumers, we tend to think to ourselves that it's like, even though we're seeing all three agencies on one single page, we're thinking they're all the same. But in reality, they're not. They're just there for our convenience to an extent, because nevertheless, they're different companies. I always tell this to people. We have Bank of America, we have Chase, and we have Wells Fargo. Yeah, they're all banks. They more or less operate the same, but they have a different owner. They have policies and procedures. Everything's different. So maybe it was there on Equifax, but then it got, obviously, when it came onto TransUnion a few months later, if you hadn't challenged it back then on TransUnion, then you can't say that the account came back. So very important there. So always have a copy of your credit report. What I see a lot of the time that happens too, to give you guys some information, what tends to happen too is you buy data, or in this particular case, original creditors, Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, they grab all their defaulted accounts, and then all of a sudden now they want to go ahead and sell them off to collection companies for obviously pennies on the dollars, which is usually what they buy them for. But what happens if the collection company can't recover? So we have one now that I see it all the time, Midland Credit Management, or Midland Funding, or MDM, or MCM. It's pretty much all the same. But what happens is that if you're this mega company that's buying millions of dollars in defaulted accounts, and then all of a sudden you can't collect because not only that the information was deleted from the report, now people don't want to pay it, you don't want to just lose the money. So what have they done? They've gotten a little slick. They started creating DBAs, doing business as. So obviously here it's at Buildward Strategies. That's the name of the business. But we also do business as BWS, short, or your financial blueprint, which is our slogan, right? It's the same company under the umbrella. But now, obviously, because the name changed and the account number changed, the rule says that you could apply it onto the report. Nevertheless, it's the same company. So you also have to be aware of that. But when we're talking about a company, let's say as an example, Portfolio Recovery, that maybe doesn't have all those doing business as, what are the things that I look for? So you have to go back 7 months. You found that credit report and you're like, hey, you know what? It's the same account. I knew I was reporting on all three. And now all of a sudden you got the new report and it's reporting on all three. Let me do my due diligence. What am I looking for? Is it the same name? It has to be identical in order for it to be the same. Is it the same account number? It has to be identical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is it under the same account type? Does it say collection on it? Or does it say charge off? Does it say what's the open date? Is it the same identical date? Is it from the same at least month and the same year? Because sometimes you won't have the date, but you'll have the month and the year. Is it closed? Look at the status aspect of it. And the balance is obviously really important. And given the fact that this one in particular is a collection, it's not going to have a credit limit because it's not an original creditor. Now, if you're going line by line and everything is identical, then you probably say, you know what, it is the same account. With that being said, with the same success that you've had before, challenging the account, you will have the same success going forward, especially if you've made homework, if you've actually kept the details, that information archived, if you have the report from when you actually did the disputes and the agency sent you the correspondence and it says that it was deleted, use that as supporting documentation. That should help you guys out. I hope this information was very educational. Until next time, guys, thank you for the love and support.